What a night! I'm not sure how much more chaos hockey fans can take in one night of playoff hockey. All 4 games decided by 1 goal. Even some dramatic show for it as well. Everything from day 3 was the NHL's love letter to the fans of this amazing sport. The Stanley Cup Playoffs are truly the best playoffs of the 4 North American professional sports. Let's get into it. It really took this long for Alex Ovechkin to score his first career playoff overtime winner? That stat doesn't even seem real. 39 years old, 20 years in the NHL, and he scores his first career playoff overtime winner this late into his career. 15 days after he broke Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record, he's breaking his own records and even moving up leaderboards. Anyway, the Capitals avoid the President's Trophy curse, and they came into this game as the clear-cut favorite to beat the Canadiens. Some even said that this is going to be an easy win for Washington in the first round. But let's get this clear. Neither one of these 2 teams are impacted by injuries to star players. Anyone saying this was going to be an easy win for the Caps needs to get their memory refreshed. The Habs, after being second worst in the league by record on December 1st, stormed all the way back to clinch the final wildcard spot in the East. And while this is a different team than the one that made the final 4 years ago, they have a reputation for causing chaos in the playoffs. They're not just going to lie down and die. Just wait for that part, because we'll get to it. The Caps cruised through the first 40 minutes of play. Ovi started the scoring doing the thing, scoring from his office, taking a cross-ice pass from Tom Wilson and ripping a wrister. But it's not just Ovi on the board. Ovi gets one for the Caps too. Anthony Beauvillier was elevated to the top line, and immediately that chemistry clicked. Off his own rebound when tipping in Ovi's shot, Ovi put in his own rebound 5-hole. This could have been a larger lead for Washington entering the third. Montreal was limited to just 3 5-on-5 high danger chances, while the Caps had 72% of the expected goals. But anyone who follows this Montreal team knows that they're young and hungry. And while it's nice having veteran experience on a team, the kids want to make the most of this opportunity to shine. Ivan Demidov took the NHL by storm with an outstanding debut against Chicago in the penultimate game of the Habs regular season. And while rather quiet in this game, it's the 2 big young guns making the most in the third period. Cole Caulfield made a 1-goal game on the power play when Patrick Laine's ripper from Ovi's office bounced twice off Nick Dowd and Matt Roy, and Caulfield was open at the slot to knock it down as Logan Thompson was late to get back. And later, Caulfield's line mate and partner in crime, Nick Suzuki, collected the puck out of a net front scramble and spotted Thompson way out of his crease and banked it into the empty net. Suzuki waited out everyone and fooled Thompson to selling the initial shot before firing it to even the game of 2. The 2-0 lead was gone through the second half as the Habs controlled the entire pace with 32 shot attempts in the third, 14 shots on goal, 12 scoring chances, and 5 high danger chances in the final frame. Martin St. Louis trusts his core 4 of Suzuki, Caulfield, Yuri Slafkovsky, and Lane Hudson the latter half of this period, as this is the core that's done most of the work. Hudson just tied Larry Murphy for the league rookie record in assists. The other 3 led Montreal on 5-on-5 with heavy positive differentials in shot attempts, shots on goal, scoring chances, and high danger chances. Washington, meanwhile, was held without a shot on goal in the final 11:30 of regulation, and some had to ask, how will the Caps solve these problems heading into this series? May we introduce you to Alexander Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. Ironically, he never had a playoff overtime winner after he just tied Mario Lemieux for 7 most power play goals in NHL history. His 29th until in the 4th period. Ovi fed his own rebound to a cutting Ovi. Bats it out of midair. Line drive to center. Goodbye. 2 red lamps, 1 apple, 4 shots, 9 shot attempts, 2 individual scoring chances, 2 high danger chances, and 7 hits. What more can't he do? He also is the 4th oldest player to score a playoff OT goal behind Steve Thomas, Ray Whitney, and Igor Larionov. And a shout out to the top line. Not only with Beauvillier and his penchant for stepping up at the playoffs, which was the case of his goal and the assist on the game winner. Dylan Strome factored into each and every one of the Washington goals, all secondary assists. And Thompson, despite giving up those goals with him out of the net, had himself a great game where he made 33 saves in his first game back since early April, stopping 1.66 goals above expected too. Of all the pressure on the Caps, they delivered. Nice work. The Blues were bit by the high-octane energy of Game 1, which backfired on them at the end, despite giving the Jets a scare. So it's time to switch things up for Game 2. Slow grind. A grueling one. It mostly worked for the Blues, as they want to grind out a win over the Jets at Winnipeg to even the series. Both teams traded goals in the first period, but that was it. Mark Scheifele had a rather awkward goal where he cut around Nick Leddy towards the net. Lost the puck when avoiding Jordan Binnington's poke check, but it deflected to the net after it bounced off Jimmy Snuggerud's skate. But Snuggerud would get revenge as he beat the buzzer on the power play in the first period, where he was set up by Pavel Buchnevich's cross-ice pass and beat Connor Hellebuck Walker's side of a wrister. He just scored his first career NHL goal in Game 82, and now he has his first career NHL playoff goal. What a week it's been for the kid. In the middle 20, nobody could get an advantage over one another, and both teams had just 32 shots combined. The Jets have toughness of their own, with Logan Stanley making good impressions with him delivering heavy hits that energized the wideout. The Blues' power play was a hot one so far as they start 3 of 4 on the man advantage in this series, but the Jets' PK, which has been so-so throughout the season, bent but didn't break the rest of the way. Scott Arniel and Dena Chainalev put on a more aggressive PK through the stretch since the Four Nations break to ensure the Jets were the hardest team in the league to generate a shot. Of note in the game was that Snuggerud was bumped to the top line of Buchnevich and Robert Thomas, with Jake Neighbors going to the second line of Braden Shen and Jordan Kyrou. That worked when Snuggerud scored the tying goal, but there's an underrated addition to the Blues lineup in the game. Tyler Tucker. Jim Montgomery elected to go with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, inserting Tucker for toughness as Matthew Joseph was kept on the bench in the third period for several games down the stretch, and once again was the case in Game 1. One of the strengths the Blues had in the final 2 months of the regular season was late game goals. They were almost unstoppable in leading or tied heading into the third. In their 19-4-3 run since the Four Nations break, they won 18-1-0 when leading or tied after 2. Show of hands, everyone. Can anyone guess who that one loss was to? Well, just like that game, both teams were tied entering the third, but unlike that game, the opponent didn't score midway through the third. They scored in the second minute of the third here. Yes, guys. In a twist of irony, the Winnipeg Jets, the only team to beat the Blues when St. Louis was leading or tied heading into the third after the Four Nations break, beat the Blues again here in the playoffs. This time they decide not to wait to strike. Kyle Connor nets a second go-ahead goal of the series when Cole Perfetti won a puck battle in the corner to extend a zone shift. First, Connor offered puck support to Josh Morrissey high in the zone, then went to the slot completely unwashed. Scheifele, Perfetti, Connor, bang! Perfect passes, perfect shot, perfect timing. Hellebuck and the Jets defense did the rest, and they held on to a 2-1 win. Hellebuck was much more solid this time around, where he stopped 21 of 22. Both games were essentially decided by one goal. And while the shots were 22-22 in Game 2, they've outshot the Blues 16-7 in the third and outscored them 4-0 in that frame. They should get credit for what they're doing. But the Blues, at the same time, are making bad plays in their own end to allow these goals. Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko had chances to kill the play, but Perfetti going to the point, Cam Fowler had another chance to kill the play, so the Jets were slipping the puck past Parayko and Buchnevich. It's not helping that both Thomas and Parayko may not be 100% because of injuries. The Blues were also not as aggressive on the front and are rarely getting high danger chances. As the series shifts to St. Louis, the Blues need to change the narrative of a turnaround in the third period. They need it badly. Yes, this is only Game 2, but one can say that this game was as must-win as it gets for Dallas. No Jason Robertson and no Miro Heiskanen. It was obvious that their backs were against the wall after a disappointing Game 1. Hey, it was nice to see Gabe Landeskog warming up for the Avs. He didn't suit up for this game, but it could suggest that he could be back in Colorado's lineup for Game 3 when the series shifts to Denver. After a game which John Ott and I were wondering where the offense was going to come from for the Stars, we had our answers in Game 2. It was a tighter match this time around at American Airlines Center. And yes, they gave up that power play goal to Nathan MacKinnon, but what does the Avs power play not look lethal? It was Tyler Seguin answering with a power play goal of his own when Matt Duchene found it with a cross-slot pass, this time of a one-timer. Then it was Thomas Harley who got Dallas the lead when he deked out Charlie Coyle and fired a wrister from the high slot and found enough room on the right side of the net. But that was quickly answered back by the Avs from the inside edge of the right circle when Logan O'Connor tracked down a puck that was dumped to the far corner, and O'Connor fed Jack Drury for the tying goal. Both teams would wear each other down throughout the second period and fuel each other as both Jake Ottinger and Mackenzie Blackwood would take over from that moment. That also included Colorado's penalty kill, as they would kill off 3 penalties in the second half of the frame, including 7 seconds of a 5-on-3. And guess who strikes again? Yes, the Avs fourth line gets the job done again. And what a beauty of a goal. On a 3-on-2 rush, Sam Girard finds Arturi Lehkonen, who was closed off, so he quickly went to a cutting O'Connor. And as he was falling down, elevated backhander over Otter's glove, he just exited the penalty box too. Nothing doing for the first half of the third. But there were several times in which both goalies were getting hounded, and they held their own very well. Lehkonen wanted to extend the lead to 2 as he fell down the ice, regains composure and fires gloves down, which Otter got him. I don't know what is it with Lehkonen in the playoffs, but even though he's great in the regular season, all of a sudden he turns into Jari Kurri when the playoffs arrive. Okay, Jari Kurri comparisons are a bit of a stretch, but simply put, he turns on demon time when the playoffs come. You know who else turns on demon time when the playoffs come? Wyatt Johnston. The puck exits a force battle of Johnston firing through traffic, and off a rebound, poking it home as Evgeny Dadonov. Blackwood never covered it up entirely. We are tied at 3 apiece. And guess what? The goalies continue to take over throughout. Blackwood shuts off Sagan's wide open rebound try, and Mason Marchment had the game on his stick and get robbed by Blackwood going post to post in overtime. Did I say we're in overtime? Oh, this took longer than the Capitals wanted to get decided, but Blackwood and Ottinger were fantastic. It will take a rebound chance to finally have this game end. Playoffs are a time where unlikely heroes rise, and Colin Blackwell, who was just inserted into the Dallas lineup, took his chances by taking himself inside the zone as the Avs were caught on a late change. The first shot was stopped from the slot, but the puck came free to the bottom of the right circle, and Blackwell roofs it to knot up this series at 1 game apiece. What a win for the Stars, and what a moment for Blackwell, whose only experience in the playoffs was a 7-game series loss when he was on the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2022. In the first round, he's the second player in Dallas' history to score an overtime goal in his first playoff game with the franchise, joining Brian Propp when the team was known as the Minnesota North Stars in 1991. Dallas absolutely needed this victory, because had Colorado took both games at the AAC, this series would have turned ugly. But it wasn't, and the Stars are back in this. Even for the loss, the Avs have found themselves some solace on the fourth line. Parker Kelly, Jack Drury, and Logan O'Connor rose to the occasion, and Jared Bednar trusts this trio for the long haul. Knowing that O'Connor is a defensive-minded energy forward, that has its benefits, and with Gabe Landeskog back in the fold, Bednar could drop Joe Kiviranta to the bottom line in that mix. This line makes life worse for opponents with hard work and physicality. Now surely, we won't have things get any more chaotic, right? No, your screen is not frozen. This is my exact reaction to this game. What the hell did we just witness? In a series in which I thought it might be different this time around for the Kings, it sure looked like it at first. Oh boy, we were in for a treat. To say this game was a heart attack and a half is the understatement of the month. Even after watching every minute of this game, it still doesn't feel real. The Kings came swinging out the gates, and they were in full control through 2 periods of play. They exploded to a 4-0 lead. By that point, the guys they wanted to score, scored. Andrei Kuzmenko on a tap-in off Kevin Fiala's backdoor pass. Quinton Byfield gloving down Drew Doughty's rebound to bank it off of Stuart Skinner. Adrian Kempe on a backhand pass to the glove of Skinner. Philip Deneau off an Evan Bouchard turnover to the middle of the ice with Byfield setting it up. At this point, I was in full belief that the Kings would hang on to win this game. This is the best Kings team in this current iteration of the club. Their goaltending has been stabilized, and their defense is a suffocating unit. The Oilers are still an offense-first team, continuing to prioritize as such, but many of their players regressed this season, including Connor McDavid. For any other player getting a 100-point season, it will be a career year, but for him, it's just another season. But this team got older and slower last offseason. They scored 2, One late in the second with McDavid out-mustering Anze Kopitar to set up Leon Draisaitl on a one-timer, and the other early in the third when Matthias Janmark tucked a shot just outside the crease past Kemper. That latter goal was assisted by Jeff Skinner, who was in the playoffs for the first time in his career. That ends a league record 1,078 regular season games without a playoff appearance. 15 years without heading to the big dance between bad Carolina and Buffalo teams, and finally, he gets his time to exhale. But the Oilers' lack of discipline showed when Zach Hyman and Jake Wallman each committed penalties, and Kevin Fiala made them pay off a one-timer at the top of the right circle on the ensuing 5-on-3. It was 5-2 Kings with 15 minutes to go by that point, and there's no need to worry about it because the Kings are up by a sizable margin. There's no way the Oilers can come back from this deficit, right? Right? Well, momentum is such a funny word in hockey, because even when you're up by 3 goals, even this late in a game, no lead is safe. Not even a 4-goal lead. Especially not against an Oilers team that erased a 3 games to 0 series deficit to force Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final last year, even for this not being the same Oilers team from last year. The Oilers are still the Oilers. And Corey Perry is still Corey Perry. He'll create that space for himself, even if it means getting away with a light push on Joel Edmondson. Yes, that was a cross-check. But do you seriously expect the refs to call that penalty if it's not egregious enough in the playoffs? And you have McDavid making McDavid-esque plays to create space around Vladislav Gavrikov, one of the best two-way defensemen on the Kings, and he made him look like a fool. 2-goal game, but it seemed the wrench was thrown on the comeback attempt when Wallman committed a delay of game penalty. Very close call, but I get why the Oilers talented, because from one camera angle, it seemed to have bounced off the glass. The refs weren't having it, and the Oilers have to kill off a 5-on-3. This was a penalty kill that allowed just 4 power play goals all of last postseason. The Kings couldn't sell the PK last year, but they did this time around, twice. Third time would not be the charm as Edmonton gets a much needed kill at the 5-on-3. Time started to become the Oilers' enemy. Late in the game, they had no choice. Stuart Skinner had to be pulled. If they're going to pull off a miracle, they need to get the extra attacker out. There was no room for error anymore. They had to go for it. Sustained zone time for several seconds. And at the end of it, McDavid finds a cutting Shaq Hyman, who gets an alley-oop dunk to make it a 1-goal game. Drew Doughty tried to cut out the passing lane, only for McDavid to outweight him and smoothly skate right by his outstretched legs to find Hyman, who was untouched in front. The Kings missed the empty net several times in a row, which bought the Oilers more time to take advantage too. But that's not all. The Oilers need one more to tie it up. Every play matters. Draisaitl knows this well, so he decides to feed a speedy McDavid, who turns down the motor down the near side of the ice, banks the puck off the boards around Mikey Anderson to feed it to himself, and closes out on Kemper, tucks it in past the 5-hole, tie game. 2 goals in 36 seconds. The Edmonton Oilers, after being down by 4 goals, have come back in Game 1 to force over. Psych! The crowd went from the biggest pin drop heard around Los Angeles to the biggest explosion of loud cheers in an instant. Just when you think it can't get any more dramatic, oh yeah, it can. After collective expressions of shell shock, the Kings backed into the corner. Oh, the pressure on them now. Delivered the game-winning goal 46 seconds after the McDavid tying goal with 41.1 seconds left in regulation. The Oilers wanted to go for the win in regulation, but a backhand pass was missed and Bouchard missed the keep too. Then it was the grinder line for LA to start the rush. Trevor Moore took it one-on-one, waited for the trailer options, finds Philip Deneau, who was sliding in front with Warren Fogle setting a screen. What? What? That wasn't even a dangerous shot. How do you give up a complete softy of a knuckle puck? And Oilers fans have every right to be upset at the results, not only at Stuart Skinner himself, but the front office for not addressing the goaltending concerns. Yes, the Oilers went to Game 7 of the final last year, but Skinner has a long enough sample size to show that he's not a reliable goalie. With him in net, you're basically playing Russian roulette. In 36 career playoff games, he has a sub-900 save percentage in 19 of them. Calvin Pickard isn't much better as a backup. The problem here isn't Skinner or Pickard. It's that these are your two best options if you're Edmonton. Yes, in 2023 it was a rookie, so that was alright, he had a leash. But 2024 and beyond, this is why they should have addressed goaltending concerns at the deadline. Yes, you're careful of cap space because of the new Draisaitl contract and you're preparing for extensions of McDavid and Bouchard. But the Oilers have no excuses for not addressing goaltending concerns. Look at what the Avalanche did when they got Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. You couldn't even get John Gibson? Even worse, you insist on not getting a goalie at the deadline? No, I'm not going to say a certain Steve Dangle phrase. It's already ingrained into Stuart Skinner's DNA. It would still be hockey had it not been for that. At the same time, I'm still in shock. This game had everything. The only thing you could say was missing was, well, I don't know, any sort of logic? We're so close to having a reverse miracle on Manchester. Instead, we got a frenzy at Figueroa. Darryl Evans, the Kings color commentator who scored the winning goal at the Miracle on Manchester, even remarked that this looks familiar a little bit. The difference was that the Miracle on Manchester was a huge change of momentum in favor of the Kings. This game was more give or take. Sometimes it may be a break, other times it may be a mistake. And oh boy, one of the most unpredictable games ever imaginable gets a thrilling finish. Man, I love playoff hockey.